BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello and welcome to episode, I've forgotten the episode number, I believe it's 564 of BRB UK.
Let's go with that.
I am Coleman. Hi. And the reason for my not being fully aware of what episode number this is because Dan was with us until the very last second and then had to duck out for work. So unfortunately, you're stuck with my tones this week instead of Dan. And a man whose tones are always here, although a little bit on the mucusy side this week, we have one, Tim.
Slightly dying of man flu.
Oh, I mean, I did say just before we started recording, not in so many words, but I'm gutted that you're not feeling well. It's not a great sound for the show. But at the same time, I'm a little bit chuffed that it's not me that's sick, because I got sick twice in a row after just not getting sick since COVID.
Yeah, I haven't been ill for a while. I'm not liking it, but hey.
No, not fun.
No, I blame Spider-Man 2.
Yes, I do a little bit as well. A little bit of a different show this week. We're not going to be covering news just because it's one of those weeks where I went through the headlines and it's a very slow news week. And unless you care about things that are being patched into games or being removed from games, there's not a lot of interest to be talking about. So instead, we're going to just talk about the games we didn't played this week. And there's good reason. Myself and Tim, we tend to ramble when we're both talking about a game we've been playing and we like. And one of the biggest, if not the biggest, release of this year has come out last week. We've both been playing it. It is Spider-Man 2. It is a game that I think both of us thoroughly enjoyed and put on top of our Game of the Year list on that year.
Yep.
Sequel 2. So, yeah, it's something we've both been looking forward to. So we might be rambling a fair bit, and we have other games to talk about as well. So I thought it'd be good
light
to
on the
skip
news, heavy on the
jump
games.
straight onto it. Exactly. So, Tim, Insomniac have put out a sequel to Spider-Man. Previously they did with Miles Morales, but now we have Spider-Man 2. And I don't know about you, Tim, but this is the game where not only makes you feel like you're playing as Spider-Man, makes you feel like Spider-Man, but it also gives you all the cocky swagger of a black teenager. To quote two different reviews from previous games that have not gone down well.
Okay.
Yes. Spider-Man 2, the game that lets you play as Peter Parker's Spider-Man and Miles Morales' Spider-Man together at last. And it's been pretty good. And just to sort of jump straight into it, premise of this one, we've passed the two stories of the previous games. They give you a nice little intro if you want to see that. Kind of make note to things like DLC and side stories and stuff that you might not have touched on, although you should have, because those games are very fun and a lot of the best story is in the side stories, same as this one. We've passed on from the previous stories. We've passed off from Dr. Octopus, Hammerhead, Tinkerer, and now we've got two Spider-Men in New York roaming around, teaming up together, and we have the return of Peter Parker's friend, Harry Osborn, which, oh no! He's been strucken with the Osborn curse, as seen from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he is poorly sick, as alluded to in the previous game. And rather than doing some kind of vaccine or search for a cure, he has a symbiote, which we know leads to symbiote Spider-Man and Venom.
Never good.
Yes. This game, we kind of kick off as the two heroes are kind of struggling their work-life balance. They're trying to, Miles Morales is applying for college and Peter Parker is trying to get a job. And then, oh no, Sandman attacks New York. And that's where we start. But yes. Tim, how have you found the game so far? And how much have you played so far?
Really good. I'm something like level 23, 24, something like that. And I'm a good, 12 plus hours in, basically. So I haven't actually got up to the bit that was shown as the kind of bit of gameplay they showed off in the state of play stuff that they did. So the bit on the water with the boats and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, stuff with Lizard.
Yes, without giving too much away in the story, I've just come back from my visit to the zoo.
Okay.
All right. You know where I am. But I don't know about you. I've done a fair bit of side content as I'm going as well, basically. I think I've just completed all of the missions in Central Park, which is the first area that I've done all of the side missions in, basically.
I know exactly where you are. I thought I hadn't got very far into the game because, all this stuff. In terms of the story, a lot of the story's been given away in abilities and characters and things that you see. So, I have now got a symbiote suit. I hadn't got a symbiote suit previously and didn't think I'd gotten very far into the game because of that. Booted it up and it said, "Hey, you're 48% complete." I went, "Oh, I'm way further than I realized." And
Okay.
some people have complained that the story is quite short on this game in comparison to how it felt previously. But I don't know if I'm just it's because I'm doing all the side stuff along the way like I did previously. Because I got it to that nice little point where I completed the game, roll credits, and hit the platinum at the same time. And I'm going to see if that's possible with this one, because it wasn't with Miles Morales. But
Right.
I'm really
Okay.
enjoying it so far. I've
Yeah.
I've got pretty far into it.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a good kind of building on, and sometimes with a sequel, it's just a bit more of the same. And I was a little bit worried that I might have a similar approach in this to God of War, because I think of God of War sequel Ragnarok. Because for me, and it kind of relates even further, because God of War and Spider Man, the original God of War 2016, and Spider Man that was released in the same year, were very much duking it out for my favorite game of that year, and possibly my favorite game of all time. I think Ghost of Tsushima just pipped both of them to the post shortly afterwards. But yeah,
But
they were
luckily, we get 3
definitely,
picks each.
yeah. But they were definitely, vying for my attention that year, and it's kind of, I was a bit worried that this might be a similar thing to God of War 2 for me, because God of War Ragnarok, because I really enjoyed what I played of that, but I kind of ended up bouncing off it, even though I enjoyed it, and just went over to other things and never went back to it.
Oh,
And I,
okay.
from what I've played of Spider-Man so far, I don't think I'll have a similar problem with this. I keep on meaning to pick up God of War Ragnarok and finish it off, but I just never have. Whereas Spider-Man, I can see me mainlining all the way through, and maybe concentrating a little bit on the story, and then leaving some of the side missions for mopping up afterwards. But generally, I can see me definitely playing this to completion sooner rather than later, basically.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't recommend sleeping on the side missions in the same way that I do with the God of War games, because those
Mm.
I have gone straight through the story and then went side stuff. I'll come back to that at some point because it is a
Yeah.
great game, and I did manage to like completely go straight through God of War Ragnarok or God of War, and with this one, through going through the side missions, some of the best storylines and the characters are actually in the side missions in this one.
Right.
So definitely don't sleep on. There's some Mysterio side levels, and
Yes,
there's the
I've done a few of
Flame.
them,
I
yeah.
think it's called.
The Flame, yeah.
Go through those because they're great.
Okay.
There's some great character stuff in those. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's the combination of the two Spider-Men. I'm much happier because I don't know if you remember this when we were talking about Miles Morales. I said that I was enjoying that game so much that when I finished it, I went back to Spider-Man and had picked up the PS5 version and went, "Oh, the something is weird about the combat and the web slinging that I didn't think had changed when Miles Morales came out,
Right.
but it's ever so slightly improved in Miles Morales that I was struggling to play the game back on the original." So now Peter Parker plays like Miles Morales, which is cool, although
Yeah.
slight difference because Miles Morales has his Venom electric powers and he can go invisible, whereas Peter relies more on his fancy new spider legs, as
Yep.
the Iron Spider leg things, and a lot more gadgety stuff that than Miles would use. However, the majority of the time they do feel quite similar. I find that because you've got your stealth missions in this, and Miles is better for that because he can turn invisible.
Yeah.
But there is a point when you unlock that symbiote suit that because the stealth missions are some of my favorite in the Spider-Man games. But when we went, hey, here's your symbiote suit, now you have these insanely powerful abilities.
Yeah.
Every time I come up to one of the, and bearing in mind, I came to an abandoned hotel that's like a 3-story stealth mission, and just fought my way through it from start to end instead of doing any of the stealth stuff because Peter's so powerful as the symbiote, and it was just it was more fun doing that. So I feel like I'm ruining a bit of it for myself. However, the abilities are fun, and I wish there was more kind of difference between the two Spider-Man abilities because they do share a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got too deep into either of their trees to see if that's, a bigger problem late game, and I imagine they diverge a little bit more as you go. But I don't know that from what I've seen necessarily. But I think there's enough of a difference that you can choose. Okay, no, for this type of, and some missions it enforces the fact that you have to change from one Spider-Man to another.
Yes.
But when you get the choice, I still think there's enough of a difference to make that choice feel, a worthwhile decision. Kind of, I know I fancy doing this with Spider-Man, or no, I'd prefer to do this type of mission with Miles.
It's cool in some levels, but in some it doesn't quite make sense because there are a couple of characters from the 2 previous games, and you can approach them as either Peter or Miles. It's your decision. But
Yeah.
when you've only dealt with a character as Peter Parker in the previous Spider-Man game, and then you turn up as Miles, and he's like, "Oh, I know who this guy is." It's a bit it kind of ruined the story for me a little bit in that terms. I was like, "Oh, well, I wish I did that as Peter."
They're mostly
It's not
at
a big
least
thing,
allude to
'cause
that or talk
it is
about it in
optional,
most
but
cases, I think.
yeah.
But
those
I
are the
also
optional
think
missions.
that it's something that we've seen done well in other games, particularly in Grand Theft Auto 5. Switching between characters is very smooth and seamless in this. They do some nice cinematic switches where you'll pull out from one character, zoom across the city and then come up behind another one. And that's cool, except for I did that once and was wearing an odd costume. I won't spoil it just in case people want to keep that as a surprise. But it was, a semi-serious kind of transition, and it came up, and then my costume was quite ridiculous when I got there. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I was wearing that. But yeah, like I actually think one of the biggest differences, because the combat has changed, and I think particularly with Peter, with the venomized side of things, that feels different to the previous games, whereas a lot of their other powers feel not quite the same, but very similar, or exactly the same as they were before. But I think the biggest difference is in the traversal, and I think that is something that the bigger city benefits from you having faster methods of transport for getting around it. In
Yes.
particular, the web wings, basically. So you can fly, and in the what I think is particularly useful is the bridges, which might be a bit boring to transition across if you were just swinging. I think every bridge I've found so far has a kind of wind tunnel type thing next to it, where if you fly in the web wings, you will speed up as you go, and that kind of makes traversing across the bridges that bit quicker. And there's also those type of corridors scattered throughout the city, and then air vents that blow you upwards and stuff like that as well. And that makes getting around on your web wings that much quicker and easier than just swinging through the city, basically, which I think is to its benefit. It also still, I was a bit worried that that would feel a bit, because I think the swinging makes you feel like a cool version of Spider-Man, and it's one of those things where I don't want to fast travel in this game because I like the traversal. But the web wings actually, I think, are a positive addition that makes the going across things a bit quicker. Feels somewhat skill based. It does feel that you can't just, tap the web wings and fly everywhere really easily. It feels like you've got to be searching for the correct routes, or thinking about when you're swinging out of it if you're coming too near the ground. And yeah, like traversing the city and using both of those methods and going back and forth between them feels good. And yeah, like I like doing that basically. So I'm pleased that the implementation of that has been well done.
It is funny because I like one of the things I do like is because in previous games you had to unlock subway stations to fast travel. In this one, you just
To get
have, because
sandwiches.
each each part of the map is broken up into districts, and then when you've done enough activities in a district, be that fighting random crimes or doing side missions or finding collectibles, then you can just fast travel to anywhere within that section, which is really helpful in a lot of cases because you might find yourself trying to do the timed crime missions and try to web swing to them or glide to them and not hit them in time. And you could just pull it up on the map and then just instantly move to that point.
Okay.
But the funny thing with the web wings, which I do really enjoy, is once again we've got another superhero game that involves you flying through rings. Which I don't know if you've ever played Superman 64, Tim, or know the legend of Superman 64, but that is a big trope of that game that people have made fun of for years. But it totally makes sense. It's one of those things where when we went Arkham Knight to Arkham City and you had the glide ability, it made sense because Arkham City, then Arkham Origins, they made the city bigger, so they had to speed up the grapnel and the gliding into a different ability. And then when we got to Night and they made the map even bigger, it's like, right, we need a Batmobile now. And it makes sense to give you some better traversal in this one.
So you're saying
like all
Spider-Man
that
3,
stuff.
we're going to get a Spider-Man mobile? Is that what you're saying?
I'm looking forward to because I made mention of a Spider-Man 3 thing today. I saw a video of, and this has been the same. Well, sorry, I seen a video of, hey, Spider-Man doesn't kill, but here's all these people that he's clearly killed when he's fighting them. I was like, I looked at the site that did it, and I remember they made a video last time from the last Spider-Man game and went, Spider-Man doesn't kill, but here's these characters that he's clearly killed and done a little montage. And then I looked further back and they did it for every Arkham game as well. I was like, I can't wait for the Marvel Spider-Man 3 to get this exact same video again. But yes, next Spider-Man game will have some other form of traversal, I'm sure. The improvements I like, the combat stuff. The things I'm not so keen on are, unless it's like the story, unless it's beneficial to the story, like there's cycling modes in this game, which
that feels really weird, doesn't it?
It made sense the first time, but then they did it again, and I'm sure they'll do it again before the game's over. But you've got the kind of forced stealth section as well, which last time was Miles and Mary Jane. And this time, and that was like a big complaint of the game, was the Mary Jane missions. And this, before the game came out, they went, we're working really hard to make sure that the Mary Jane missions aren't boring or feel like they're just kind of there to stretch the game out.
Mary Jane
And
got a
their way of
gun.
doing that is, we gave her a stun gun, and that's going to make it much more exciting. I'm like, I mean, it does. It moves faster than the last time, but I actually kind of like the slow pace of the last time because they threw so many. I mean, there's that. But in the previous game, they gave you stealth missions in a museum and just crammed it full of Easter eggs. This time they go, here's a stealth mission in a zoo, and there are no Easter eggs in it whatsoever. So there's the difference there. But yeah, the Mary Jane stuff might be a little bit faster, and you might have a stun gun, but it's still there, and it still feels like we're stretching time, padding for time a little bit in the game, stretching out the story a little bit more. And instead, because Miles has powers now, he doesn't get stealth missions. You use Spider-Bot instead. There's stuff like that. Stuff feels a little bit. If you're to nitpick anything, there's that.
Yeah, I was going to say, from what I've seen of that so far, I don't think it's overused, and I think it does help break up the pacing a little bit. And okay, you can go off and choose to do side missions, which kind of change it up a bit, but otherwise, it does kind of. It means you don't know exactly what you're getting into when you go into one of the main missions or one of the side missions, and you're not sure exactly what the gameplay is, which I kind of like. I like being surprised a bit by that. And it does mean that you don't get fed up of just doing combat, I think, which kind of helps.
That's fair, but there's enough kind of Spider-Man missions that revolve around swing to this place, do a bit of story, swing to this place, do a bit of story, and not have the combat.
I mean, that's Spider-Man.
Yeah, I guess that they do. There is a very big emphasis on this, which we saw a lot more in Miles Morales, I think, of the idea of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That there's missions that don't just involve, hey, there's a bunch of bad guys in this place, go beat them up and hit a point to say that you've done the mission. There are things like, hey, follow this story about a graffiti tagger that's trying to get better. Follow this story about trying to help two students. A student ask another student to the prom. You know, there's things like that aren't necessarily like combat heavy, and I think that's enough to break up the gameplay without the forced stealth. However, the forced stealth stuff does add some variety, I guess, and I think that could be because because I love Spider-Man games, even the bad ones. But one of my big gripes when playing, I think it was Amazing Spider-Man 2, is so much of it was the same. And when you've got a game that asks you to stare at a bum swinging in lycra for several hours, you need something to break it up a bit. And this
like
one
a bodega cat,
different characters. I love Bodega Cat.
I was really
I'm very
to
happy to
see
see
that costume return.
yeah, they came back and the character came back and everything. I liked all that. That was really cool. I did see a glitch where everything. If you don't know, Bodega Cat is an unlockable costume in the previous game where Miles would wear a backpack with a cat wearing a Spider-Man mask in there, and when you would do certain attacks, the cat would jump out and take a swipe at the enemy, which was really cool. They've returned that costume, but added color variants. So now it wears like a Miles mask instead of a Peter mask.
Nice.
But I saw a glitch where it just erased Miles completely, and it was just the backpack and the cat flying through the sky on web wings, and it looked hilarious and cool at the same time.
I don't know about you. I've had a few glitches throughout the game. Like I had in the scene where you're at the fun fair, I had Harry crash through the stairs.
Ooh.
I've also had one hard crash when I went to a mission and it swapped out for Peter, I think. Like I was Miles and it swapped for Peter. And as it swapped, it crashed. I was like, oh. But I didn't really lose any progress in that. I discontinued and it was fine. And the other things have been minor things like flocks of pigeons like all coming down at the sky from one time and landing on the floor together kind of thing without animation, and just like odd weird little things like that, but very minor glitches that will probably be patched out as we go. Generally, I have been very impressed with the visual presentation of the game. I'm playing on fidelity mode, which I'm guessing you wouldn't because you can't stand your 30 frames per second.
I got to that Coney Island level and did not, and also the Coney Island edition is amazing to swing past that at night. Yeah, very GTA.
Looks very cool.
I got to that section and did not realize I'd been playing in fidelity mode the entire time, and I don't know why. I was doing something with visual. I think there was like a slight slowdown, and I went, "Huh, that's weird." And then I looked at I was like, I've been playing in 4K 30 this entire time and haven't noticed it plays that smoothly. And then that was the funniest thing because I then switched it to performance, which contains ray tracing like the previous game. Yeah. Does a smooth 60, but I enabled some settings that I probably shouldn't have, and I just looked like I was going, like the game had gone into fast forward. It was very odd, and it took me a while to get my head around it and start retraining myself to it. But
I don't know if you've seen, but
I caused some issues.
Digital Foundry had some good content that they put out this week with just, them looking at the technical side of the game, particularly the ray tracing and the reflections and all that type of stuff. And they had an interview with, I forget who exactly it was, but I think it was something like the technical director, but they went into very much the technical side of things. Obviously a bit of that goes over my head and stuff, but one thing that I was actually amazed at, and they talked about it a little bit, was the detail that you see inside of the buildings this time.
Oh, the skyboxes, yeah.
Yeah. And that looks really good. That really adds a level of detail. Like particularly in the 30 frames per second thing, there's the kind of reflections on reflections, which you can see as well, which, look ridiculously good. The reflections on other objects and things. And just the level of detail in the city as well, which it does drop down, I think, if you go to a higher frame rate, like the number of cars and people in the city does decrease a bit. But when you're playing in the 30 frames per second mode, just the city looks like really heavily populated, much more so than in the previous games, I think, to a degree where I think it makes it look more like a hustling and bustling New York City, like exactly like you'd expect, basically.
I will correct myself. I used the wrong term. I said skybox. That's the sky, literally.
Right.
In a game.
Okay. Yeah.
I meant that there was a thing they introduced in the previous games, which I assume it's the same in this one, but improved upon. And it's that each window to an apartment or a building that you look into, you can see inside.
Yeah.
And it's like a small box with things in there that kind of randomizes each time, which is funny. It was funny in the previous game because you could look into one place and it will look like one apartment, and then you'll turn the corner to the next window of the same apartment and it will look completely different because
I
it's
hadn't really
randomizing
noticed that, but
each
okay.
time of what's inside. But it's a very cool little system.
Yeah.
That I like that. I haven't noticed that kind of stuff this time around because I'm not looking for it.
Also, just one other thing, because we should probably move on and stop gushing about Spider-Man 2 quite so much. But I have to say, I was a little concerned. The other thing I was a little concerned at that's been completely abated is just by playing it was the introduction of Craven and how that would work. And I don't know about you, I didn't know they were going for the angle that they went with, even though we saw this was hinted at in the gameplay that they showed. And I won't spoil it for anyone that hasn't pieced it together, because I was like, oh, okay, that's the angle they're going with. But yeah, like Craven being a hunter and him being the like big bad, I was a bit worried that he would, because he's always seemed to me like a bit of a relic of the past kind of thing. Like
Well, we're
like a
about to get
hunter
a
or an
movie.
explorer. Like it seems a bit like old hat now kind of thing. But
Yeah.
Craven being an integral old enemy of Spider-Man that you haven't really seen in the games before. They've got an upcoming movie and stuff for him coming out, so I guess he's going to be a sort of higher profile kind of bad guy going forward. But he hasn't really been up till now, and the only thing I'm slightly disappointed on is that I've probably talked about this on the show before, but like it was a hunter story in Spider-Man that introduced the Punisher. And being in New York and an expanded level of New York, I hope he might sneak in there somewhere, maybe in some DLC. That'd be nice. But yeah, I've already come across some other characters that they've been like, and I won't spoil it for anyone that wants that, keep that a secret. But they're like, oh, we're on holiday at the moment, so we won't be appearing in this game, basically.
Yeah, I think in the previous games, because if you looked at the if you took I think it was if you took a photo of the Avengers Tower and it went, oh, the Avengers are, and it said wherever the heck they were, and
Yeah.
it's where the studios were. They were making Crystal Dynamics were making the new Avengers game. Nice little cheeky nod. In this one, they don't really mention it at all. I think there's a tie-in comic where all the Spider-Men from like, another Spider-Verse type things going on, and you meet the video game Spider-Man, and he goes, oh, how many superheroes you got in your city? He goes, oh, like a dozen or so. How about you? He goes, oh, way more. And he goes, oh, yeah, all our Avengers always seem to be away though.
Yeah.
And then I see all these kind of clickbaity headlines going, comic explains where all the superheroes are in Marvel's Spider-Man. No, it doesn't. It just says they're
Made
away.
a little joke.
It's going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who
But
knows?
it does
if the
feel
Wolverine
they're
game that
absent
Insomniac's
from the
doing,
city, though.
if Wolverine from Insomniac does really well and is kind of bloody gory type, maybe you'll get your wish and get a new Punisher game, Tim. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, really enjoying it. Some points I find the symbiote stuff a bit overpowered. I didn't like and then do like, because in the previous game it was when you unlocked a costume, you got some abilities with that costume, and then you could kind of mix and match them. That's gone. It's just costumes are costumes now. Although some of the abilities, like Spider-Man's metal spider leg things, they will change color dependent on the comic. So if you use the Iron Spider, then the gold ones come out. If you use Superior Spider-Man, the red ones come out. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
They change depending. Same with the web wings. And so that bit's changed. A lot of the gadgets that you could unlock previously, they're gone, and they've kind of just put it down to like a core 5 now. Which, it's fine because the combat does feel so much better, even though it was good previously. So there's that. The force side stuff is the force stealth stuff still a bit annoying as previous. Story stuff, if you're looking for like a dedicated hardcore following of the comics or movies or whatever you're into, a faithful retelling, you're not getting that. They're changing up characters, they're changing up powers, they're changing things around and swapping it, which my opinion's always been, if it serves the story, then I'm absolutely fine with that. Like there's something that happened that I saw happen, and I immediately thought, I know a bunch of people that'd be really annoyed by this, but I love it just because it appeared and made me go, woo, fanboy moment.
I think the biggest thing I've seen that's a departure from those sorts of things so far is the origin of Venom. And I think that's
Yes.
fine. We knew that Eddie Brock wasn't really going to be part of what's going on. We've seen from trailers that both Spider-Men were fighting Venom, and I'm guessing where Venom comes into it, but I don't really know, because if Eddie Brock's not in it, then obviously someone else is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be
I think
interesting
it's
to see
exactly what
exactly
you
where
think.
that goes. I think from what I've played, though, everything is an improvement and a streamlining of that. And if that means we get a slightly shorter game as a result, I don't think that's the worst problem for it to have. And I think all round, it feels like it is an improved and bettered version of the previous games. And I'm quite happy with the result, basically.
All I hope with this one, if the game is short and I'm done, and I've done absolutely everything there is to do in the game, apart from improve my scores in the Mysterio places or anything like that, then my hope is that we get better DLC this time around. Because although I
Yeah.
enjoyed playing more Spider-Man, any excuse, it was a worse main story and even more infuriating side story. So I'd hope we get something. Although a
Yeah,
lot of that stuff did serve,
higher quality DLC would be good.
yeah. Although, yeah, if you didn't play the DLC in the previous one, there's a couple of things that you won't understand, because it does tie up to a few things in this game. But yeah, it's cool. I really like this game. I would give it like a solid 9 out of 10, I reckon, because it is not without its faults, and I haven't seen too much. I haven't seen too much like clash from people complaining about the game, other than the accidental they put in the Cuban flag, I believe, instead of the Puerto Rican flag in some
Right.
shots, which has now been patched out like today.
Right. Right.
So that's done. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That was Spider-Man 2. I assume we're both a recommend, Tim.
Yes, strongly.
One of the few games, one of the few full price AAA games that came out that I went, yes, I'll buy this digitally, and not seek out
Oh,
a discount in any way or anything like that, because I just really wanted to play it, and two of us in the household can play it on
I got the
digital.
physical version, but hey.
That's fair. But it was one that I was actually happy to pay. Well, not happy, but I was willing to pay the price for the game and not try to go through a bunch of shortcuts to get discounts, because I actually do want to play this. Like, I'm super excited for this game, and
Whereas
very
I
happy
actually
about
got it, and I'll give them a shout out, because I've been quite pleased with the service so far. But I went on your recommendation and went with the game collection, and that
Game
meant that
collection's great.
It's great. I got it on day one. The discount that I got took it down to 53 quid, which I was very happy with.
I mean, we might talk about it if we've got time, but I got Assassin's Creed Mirage from there, and because of all they do that Nintendo thing where you buy stuff and then it adds points to your account. And
Yeah.
then what do points mean? Prizes. And in this case, it just means like money off your games, just like the Nintendo eShop. And I had, and sometimes when you pre-order stuff, they'll go, oh, double points on pre-orders and things like that. And I had stuff saved up that I got Assassin's Creed Mirage for like £25
Yeah.
day one. So I was quite chuffed with that, which is a great price to pay for that game. Right, Tim, you've been
Yep.
playing VR, and
Yes.
usually we kind of try to discourage you from talking about VR because you've got VRB. However, it's there's been some trouble getting VRB episodes out or recorded
Yes.
lately, so I'll afford you the time to talk about GreenHell VR, which I
Thank
played
you.
GreenHell, haven't played it in VR yet. So is this a VR port, or is this a new game for VR?
As far as I'm aware, it's a VR port of GreenHell, I think, I
Okay.
believe. I'm correct in that. I've heard that somewhere else, so I don't know if that's necessarily true, but from what I've heard elsewhere, that I believe that's the case. Also, just
Okay.
saying up front, one of the other reasons why I want to talk about this is because with the way shows worked out, and as you said, not getting a VRB out at least recently, I got sent a review code of this, so I'm slightly overdue with talking about it. But I also got sent a review code. This is one of the games that came out. There's been a spate of games like this recently, so I don't really hold it against the developer, because it seems like, and I actually wrote an article that alluded to some of this as well on BRB this week, that talked about, like, does Sony care about PSVR 2? And one of the things I was concerned about is there's been some high profile releases that have released in a less than perfect state. And GreenHell VR was one of the games that got some complaints at the time of release, because it was, I think that the principal complaint was that it was a bit blurry, which has been something that we've seen with a number of games now. This was one I didn't get review code until after it had been patched and that had been improved. And I think there was a number of other little improvements they made, but I think that was the main complaint that I heard from other people. But just for reference, I didn't play it previously, so I haven't been able to compare one to the other. But just seeing it afterwards, I'm obviously in a state where I'm fairly happy with it, and don't have the complaints that other people did to kind of mention, but also don't have the frame of reference to see how much it's improved. But I'm really happy with what's there. Basically, one of the reasons why I put myself forward for a review code and didn't purchase the game is because I'm not the biggest player of survival games, and I wasn't entirely sure how pleased I would be with that or how much I'd get into it. So I was a bit dubious going in. But
the reason you put in for a review game is so you can talk about it on the podcast, Tim.
I mean, there's that
games
Coleman,
to talk about on the podcast.
That's
otherwise
the,
we'd have
the
no
devil's
money in
deal
our
that
bank
has
accounts.
been made. But no. But I mean, like, we're in a position where we don't have to review every game. We can put ourselves forward for certain things. And I was curious after this had been patched to see, if I would get on with it and if it was something that I would like. And generally, I'm pleased to report back that I think I like this game more than I would do in its flat screen version, because it's more immersive in VR and because it feels like more of an experience that I'm living through than just something that's happening in front of me. And I think that does add to the game. Like, there's anyone doesn't know, this is a fairly hardcore survival game where you have to worry not just about like eating and keeping your health up and keeping yourself hydrated, but also about the quality of the water that you're consuming, in terms of like, how much it could infect you with parasites, and then also worrying about the nutrients that are in the food. So you have to make sure that you're eating a certain amount of protein and a certain amount of fatty acids and all this type of stuff. And so it's quite involved, and you're having to get those resources from the jungle around you, which makes it feel like it almost feels like you're learning how to do that properly, kind of thing. Like, you've got a notebook that kind of takes notes of the certain effects that happen when you consume something, and the different bushes and trees and different things that produce different results, and whether eating the flower or the fruit of that particular plant, what effect that will have on you. And yeah, like it's as I said, I think it was converted from the flat screen game, but it's got some really good, heavily virtual reality features to it that make it feel like it could have been built from the ground up. I certainly think that they must have considered a lot of what they were doing, or they've just implemented it very well. But the inventory system, which we've seen in other games, it's got a backpack that you can pull off your back and then put things in and out. But that works quite well. You've got like a bow and arrow that you can pull off your back, and then you've got like two sort of side pockets that you can strap things to, that you could generally keep an axe in, or maybe some sort of sharp other object. And also, yeah, like, you're very much not just hunting your food from the environment, but also you craft the arrows by picking up a stick and combining it with a feather. You make your axes by combining a large rock with a big stick. And then you can fortify that by wrapping a vine around it to kind of make it a bit more sturdy. And so you're very much having to craft everything from the environment and
salvage,
scavenge.
Yeah.
There was a better word than scavenge I was looking for, though.
Forage.
Forage and scavenge everything from the environment.
Hunter-gather.
So hunter and gather, basically, yeah. Everything from the environment. And yeah, as I said, it's got a notebook which sort of keeps track of different aspects for you, different recipes that you can put together. And yeah, like, I'm not that far into the game, despite putting like 8 or 9 hours into it so far, just because I keep on dying, Coleman. Like, the first time
that'll happen in
I died,
survival games.
falling off a log from a great height. That was my first death. But there has been lots of other deaths on the way. It also does this thing where if you get poisoned, which you can easily do if you eat like old moldy stuff, or which you can end up doing if you get desperate, or if
Reminds me of my
you eat too much
days
of
as
the
a
wrong
single bachelor.
thing. Yeah, if you eat too much of the wrong thing, you can get poisoned. And you've also got to worry about your sanity as well, and eating certain things will affect your
Oh, yeah.
sanity too. And if you get poisoned, you'll be like throwing up and you'll be dehydrated, so you have to consume more, which makes it more difficult. It also has this vignette which goes around the screen, which is kind of green, and it blacks out every now and again, and you hear the sound of you vomiting. And so it makes everything a lot harder. And then if you go insane, it does a kind of another vignette, which is a slightly different color, but then it kind of whispers things in your ears, like little doubts about what you're doing and stuff like that. So if you're lining up a shot with a bow and arrow, go, you're gonna
Ooh.
miss. And this
That's
kind
very
of
Hellblade.
and this kind of
Yeah.
this kind of makes a very sort of disconcerting kind of but I really like what it does. It comes up with a couple of little surprises when you're poisoned as well, which absolutely made me shit myself. I literally screamed, "Oh Jesus Christ!" while wearing the headset. um, and and I really enjoyed my time with it so far. I would have played a bit more before today if it wasn't for the fact that I'm ill and having a cold and sticking a VR headset on is not a good combo. But also, Spider-Man distracted me just before that as well. But I'm definitely going back to it. It's a game I've really enjoyed so far. I really want to see where the kind of mystery of the story's going with. Basically, the main setup of that is that you arrive and you're in this sort of jungle environment with there's a story and there's other modes you can play, but the main story, you arrive in a base camp and you're there with your partner, a woman basically who's gone off to sort of converse with the villagers, and then you get separated when you kind of lose your way from your camp basically, and you're trying to get back to her and find out exactly what's going on. But yeah, like the mystery of the story is good. That's kind of dragging me through things, but also just as I said, like I think it really benefits from being in VR because I feel like I'm surrounded by the jungle. I feel like I'm in the environment, and I very much feel like things are happening to me. Basically, I think it does a good job of conveying that, and I've really enjoyed it so far. So I'll definitely be playing more of it. There's not very much for me to say in the negative side of things. Like I haven't played too much of the other modes. I would say it's
Does
slightly
the blurriness
unforgiving.
that other people have been talking about not appear in this? Is that a case, or
The what? Sorry.
sorry, you said previously that people were complaining about blurriness of the game that
Yes, but
affects
that's
some
been
of the
patched, and
PSVR 2 games. Is that
as I said,
that's patched
I
out?
got the
Okay.
game after that had been patched out, and so I don't know how it compares to how it was previously, but it hasn't been an issue for me at all. I think this is a really good looking game. Um, it probably doesn't look quite as sharp as it does in the flat screen version, but it looks like a really well realized environment. You can tell exactly what's going on. The water looks nice, like the environment looks good. Um, yeah, and the different animals and stuff are kind of interesting as well. Like learn how to deal with the rattlesnakes that are in your path and can hear them coming a mile off. Yeah, first time I got attacked and killed by a larger animal, I crapped my pants as well. The first time I saw a biggish animal, I thought it was a jaguar when it was just this little teeper thing, which is kind of smaller and cuter and fuzzier. But yeah, like as I said, I've enjoyed my time with the game enough that I'm definitely going to put some more time into it, and try and get through that story mode so I can see all of what's going on. And I want to kind of go and mess around with the other modes as well. That gives you like challenge modes where you've got to do certain things, and there's half a dozen or so other modes on top of the story as well. So there's a fair bit of game for I think it's $24.99,
That's not bad.
which I think that's a fair price for what you get in return. as I said, it's a little unforgiving at first, and you really do need to learn your way through things. That's the only thing. Like, it is very much a bit of a trial and error type thing. Like, you literally have to learn what's going to poison you, what's
Yeah.
a good time to eat thing. But some things are fairly obvious. Like, the thing that drove me absolutely insane, Coleman, where I went properly off the deep end and things went Pete Tong, was me. And I got to the point of desperation where I kind of had to, but I ate some raw rattlesnake meat, and that did not go well.
Oh.
But you could probably guess that's not good. Like eating spiders, raw
No.
spiders, probably not great.
Well, I mean, in actuality of doing it, probably does not feel great, but there are ones that you can just do that with. I've watched enough flipping Bear Grylls is probably not the best example because a lot of that stuff's
Yeah.
been debunked over the years. But yeah, there are examples like survivalist shows and things that I've watched that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
show you that stuff.
But if you're a fan of that type of show, I definitely think you're going to be a fan of this game, basically. So
Yeah. It's interesting because well, you say that it's probably not as sharp as the regular releases of the game, but I mean the game itself was fairly low budget, I think, when it first came out. Like, it was a Steam early access type thing that eventually came to consoles, and it's available on the flipping Switch. So it's
okay.
probably pretty low res in itself anyway. But it was an interesting game. I didn't play very much of it. I went off it because there was a few different survivalist games that I was trying out at the time, and this does. I wouldn't have thought it to go, oh, this should be a VR game, but it does make perfect sense because my favorite VR game is probably Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners.
Yeah.
Still have yet to play the second one. And that game isn't. It's not a survival game as such, but it has those traits and qualities. It's more of a roguelite. And it does
Yeah.
that thing of you go through your backpack, but you're doing it live, so anything can attack you while you're getting into your backpack doing stuff. You're going around, you're scavenging, you're trying to craft weapons and things, and then you're trying to survive the day, basically, day to day. Whereas this one, more of a survival. You've got to build your base and things.
In
and,
terms of
yeah,
in
that
terms of
seems-
comparison, I think there's enough things in common here that you'll like this if you like that, and I think that will be the case. So I
Yeah.
think you'd like this game in VR. I would say that the combat in Saints and Sinners is a bit deeper, and there's more weapon variety, but there's more to the survival side of things in GreenHell, basically. So
Yes. And I think, well, the reason for the combat being is because it's a Walking Dead game. So you have to base it more on combat because that's a lot of the comics and TV and all that stuff focus on that. All right.
Also zombies.
GreenHell VR. Yep, there is that too. And GreenHell VR, that is available now. I think that was previously on PC and now it's available on PSVR 2. Sounds like you recommend it, Tim, and £25 is a pretty decent price for that. That's usually the limit I hit on VR games. I try to aim for around that point for the higher ones. I like that price. I don't know why I don't want to spend AAA prices for VR games. But
also, Arizona Sunshine 2 just released its price, and that's £40. So that's putting me off wanting to buy that later in the year as well. So that's not so good.
Oh dear.
But yeah.
Well, maybe if you ask Santa very nicely. All right. I was meant to talk about Sonic Superstars, but I think I'll save that for next week because I want to play more of that, and plus I can drop it right to you and you can give it a go as well.
Okay, cool.
But I will talk about Assassin's Creed Mirage very quickly. A lot of people are, some people
as you
really,
approach
really
it, does it
game.
disappear, Coleman? Is that how it works?
It sits on a park bench or hides in a crowd, and I go, all of a sudden I can't see this person that is clearly dressed as an assassin with the hood, with the peak and everything. But yes, Assassin's Creed Mirage, this came out, and this is a weird one for me because it's one that I was playing and really enjoyed it. And I am one of those people that once Assassin's Creed went, we're going to be The Witcher 3 light. I went, I don't want that. I like my Assassin's Creed games, but a lot of people were saying those Assassin's Creed games are very samey and the formula had become stale and they liked the innovation. So for some, I'm assuming the majority of people liked the changes that didn't like the changes. The problem we've had over the previous 3 iterations, I think, of the game is that they have made the open world aspect very daunting, like really expanded it out. nerfed a lot of the kind of progression stuff, and from the last 2 games started selling you like £15 upgrades to go, hey, make the game play as it should before you nerfed it all and made it
Yeah.
run really slow.
I also think on top of that, they suffer more than most from, and I think it might be as a result of their production system, they suffer more than most the problem of open world bloat. I think that's something that I don't know why other game studios like Insomniac with Spider-Man 2 have done a better job of making that less of a problem than I've seen from Assassin's Creed games.
That's because with the exception of Horizon, Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West, the majority of those tropes come from open world Ubisoft games,
Yes.
which have all come from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Even ones that existed before Assassin's Creed, later iterations started using the same things that Assassin's Creed used. So that will explain it. But
Yeah.
if you've not liked any, I mean, if you've been one of those people that have gone, hey, I've not enjoyed the series since Origins and I want the simplified version of Assassin's Creed, this is probably the game for you.
Okay.
The only reason I went for it, because I went for Valhalla way after it came out, because I got a bunch of PlayStation credit for Christmas, and the Valhalla was like super reduced for a Christmas sale or something. And I went, you know what? I haven't got much to play. I'm going to get that game. I'm going to play through a little bit and explore England, because that's something I like to do in certain video games. And I enjoyed it for a bit and then fell off of it because it was just too much stuff to do, I guess. And then this
Did
one,
you fall or did you dive off it into a bale of hay, Coleman?
bale of hay, and then went, my spine, because these physics are not realistic.
Also,
Apologies,
I
that
have
was
a
probably a
question
bit
while
too
I've
loud.
stopped you as well. You said about it
Okay.
being a good game for people that wanted to go back to the originals. I had a friend ask me the other day who was interested in the game, possibly having seen this. He was like, where's a good point for me to start on Assassin's Creed? He's never played any of them.
Ooh.
And that was a tricky one for me, because I'm like, I don't know if this is a game, if this version, and maybe you can speak to that a bit more, if this one is a good one. I kind of said it might be worth price wise jumping in on Odyssey, just because that one was highly regarded and it's probably a bit cheaper at the moment. But do you think this is a good jumping in point for people that have never played an Assassin's Creed game, or just for
See,
people that wanted to go back to the original kind of setup?
I can't tell, because I don't know if those of you who don't know, this Assassin's Creed Mirage was meant to be a DLC expansion for Valhalla, much like they did
Yes.
with Assassin's Creed Ragnarok. They went, hey, we need to make more money, so our DLC expansions, we're going to turn them into standalone games, expandalone games, and we're going to sell them for much more than we would be selling the DLC. It means it's less than what would be a regular AAA title, because I think this one retailed for about £50, or maybe
Yeah.
less than that, 40, 45, something like that. But at the same time, I don't know if it means the next time they do the big Assassin's Creed game, and by all accounts, because of financials and other problems going on at Ubisoft, they are going all in on Assassin's Creed for the future. I don't know if the next game means that they're going to go back to the big RPG, sell you a load of bloat and all that kind of stuff, or if they're going to go a more simplified route like this. And from a lot of the reputation that this has garnered, I would assume they'd go more for the bigger, because a lot of people aren't liking this because it seems like a budget title. But
Right.
if you've paid a lot less than a regular title, it is a budget
Then,
title.
yeah.
It's a DLC game that's been stretched out into a full game.
Yeah.
But I've liked that for the gameplay, for the simplified story, for the mechanics and all that kind of stuff that has changed. I've liked that for all it's kind of harkened back to that I enjoyed previously. However, I can see why some people might be put off because it doesn't contain those things that we've kind of been building towards over the years. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged or double hidden bladed sword, because it depends what you're after. And to be honest, the previous game, I mean, if your friend has access to PC gaming, I would suggest playing the previous,
Possibly.
Sorry. Okay. I would suggest going back to the original games, because I bought Assassin's Creed on PC, the first one, last year for like £3.
Right. Yeah.
And with all the improvements that have afforded me from modding and higher sophisticated hardware that existed
Okay.
at the time, I can play a much better version of Assassin's Creed. And
I,
then
I think he's
everything
got
from
an Xbox. His son's got a PC which he could play on, and he's got a Quest as well. So I think,
okay.
yeah. I said to him, possibly like either go back to Odyssey and get it a bit cheaper, or possibly just hold out for the Quest version, because I think that's got multiple different characters, and if he cares about any of the characters in that, then he can possibly go back and investigate the game that they were in, basically.
I think Odyssey's the Greek one, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So before that, I think it's
Oh, it
Origins.
was
the
Origins. I know. I think
Egyptian
I said
one.
Origins or Odyssey, basically, as I
I
think
think you said
they're
Origins, and then you switched to Odyssey as you were going.
right. Yeah.
On. But
No, but I think
curse them for
when I said to him,
two
I think
different
I
O
actually said
subtitles.
one of those two, basically. But yeah.
That's fair. I mean, if you're wanting to go in on the modern day Assassin's Creed and you're not too bothered about the lore of the previous stories, then yes, go in for Origins. I think it's finally had its 60 frames a second patch on current generation hardware, so it's probably worth doing that. If you can explore previous games, and if you really want to know about Altair and all the story, like the most boring story out of all of them, I think, and you want to play the first one, then yes, PC, go play Assassin's Creed. However, if you want to start from the fun times, I think they released an Ezio collection a couple of years ago, which
Yeah.
is a HD port of Assassin's
Okay.
Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations,
Yes, I forgot.
which is probably the better way to go because those are
Okay.
much more entertaining. Although, yeah, again, I liked the lore of the original games going forward, so I would start with the original.
But from
So
what
it
you're
depends
saying
what you're
there, you
after.
wouldn't necessarily recommend Mirage then for someone that's
Depends
the
on what
first
you want.
timer.
I got it
series.
super discounted. I am enjoying it. I like it. However, it is not without its limitations. I can see there is some uncanny valley stuff with certain models. I can see there's weird eye stuff going on with the models. I can see it's a lot limited than what you might be used to, but I enjoy it. It's a return to pickpocketing. It's a return to the original formula. It's snooping in, listening to private conversations to garner where an enemy might be. It's pickpocketing to get a key to an entrance to a bait, and doing all these kind of side missions to get to the end mission. So
Right, yeah.
you'll get a target in the previous games. You could get a target and go, I'm going to go after that target, and it's going to be super hard. Or I could do all these side targets to
Yeah.
get to that point and make it easier for me to do the final mission, but also learn a bunch of stuff on my way over.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of that. And I really like that.
Yeah, I like that from the original games as well. So
Yeah, and I don't think it's I don't think it's technically that impressive, but I think that's because it's meant to be a expansion that was made for a game that was made for PS4, Xbox One, and then PS5, Xbox
Right.
Series X and S, and it was DLC for that game that they then tried to move forward. So that's probably why it's
Yeah.
looking so limited. So I don't know. I like it. I want to play more of it, but Spider-Man came out and it's kind of gone to the wayside because of that. But while I was
Yeah.
playing it, I was enjoying it. The only technical issues I found that weren't visual were I had a couple of cases where I go to this person to start a mission or go to this person to end a mission, and you go there and no marker would appear, and you turn up and go, so what do I do now? And you'd have to save and reload, and then it would work. But other than that, nothing game breaking, nothing like really horrible. The majority of my
No sign of
game-breaking
anyone's
bugs,
faces falling off. No.
nothing like definitely not Unity. The majority of my and I wouldn't say bugs, the majority of the problems for my gaming of late have been the PS5, which at this point I've gone through fix trying to sort out. On Sunday I went, do you know what? Screw it. Stripped the entire thing down, took the whole thing apart, down to absolute motherboard, cleaned everything, all and when I'm watching tutorial videos, they're like, this thing will be really dusty. I go, it's not though, because I take really good care of my PS5, and still it overheats and still it shuts down. So I think I might be going for a PS5 Slim upgrade at some point in my future, just because I've got problems with my PS5.
You bought a
shutting
lemon.
down. I mean, it's not it's not the launch system, but it's not the. I think it's it's one of the iterations between the launch and when they were trying to get cheaper components. So it's.
But you know
launch,
what a
not
lemon
launch.
is, right? Yes.
Yeah, two halves of different cars fused together.
No, that's something else, a cut and shut or something. But no, like a
Oh,
lemon is
no,
like
yeah, no, you're right.
when it feels like a car. They often say it was either built on a Friday afternoon or a Monday morning. Like it's one of those ones that's rolled off the factory and hasn't been entirely put together properly, basically.
Okay, I know the term. I would say, I mean, it's probably put together perfectly. I think the problem is I bought this thing in a house that had a woolen carpet that molted more than most animals would,
Right.
and got sucked into the fan, and has since been cleaned out, but is still having problems.
Hmm.
I think at this point I've got to go right down to the power supply, which they don't recommend you opening up.
No.
So we'll see. Maybe.
So
It
maybe just
runs
trade
enough.
it in for a slim. It sounds easier.
Yeah, I mean, for someone who's bought Joy-Cons from a place and cleaned them up real good, cleaned the old ones up real good when I got drift, and just returned the old ones and went, these don't work. There could be a chance that I take this to a CEX and go, yeah, can I trade this thing in and get a different PlayStation 5? It runs absolutely fine, because it'll run for
Yeah.
like good 3 hours and be absolutely fine. But for your long sessions on Spider-Man 2, that's where you got the problem.
Right. So what you're saying is you definitely don't want them to test it with Spider-Man 2, basically.
Mate, look, back in the day, a lot of PS2s had the problem where they would only read certain colored discs. I think they would read the black discs, but not the purple ones or something if the
Right.
laser went out of line. I had one of those cases, and I took it into a secondhand place, and they went, yeah, we just got to make sure it all powers on and everything. And then they grabbed a disc. It's like, please make sure it's a black disc. Please be a black disc. Please be a black. Oh, thank God it is. 'Cause I was very close to getting turfed out of the only place that took in PS2s in Gosport at the time. So I'm not above scamming a return console.
Fair enough.
Yes. Anyway, Assassin's Creed Mirage. If you can get it on the cheap and you like Assassin's Creed and you want to play the best hits of the original Assassin's Creeds, then yeah, go for that. And it ties into Valhalla. The guy who's like your mentor in Valhalla, that's the guy you're playing
Okay.
as, but young
Okay.
and working his way into it. Terrible tutorials. Really, really long tutorial
Oh.
levels.
Oh.
Other than that, great. Great game. Really liked it.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Is that all the games we've done? Is that all the games we have?
I feel like I should quickly mention two of the games that I realised we forgot to mention at EGX. I will
Okay,
try and
go
do
for
them fairly quickly, though.
No, that's fine.
just-
Go for it.
There was one game called The Precinct, which I actually played. I actually looked at and was like, I swear this game came out a few years ago. There's a few, like, I think Police Simulator and a few, like, other games that are not this game, but I mistook for this game possibly. And while you were playing that samurai game that we liked, that I've for some reason
Yes.
forgotten the name
Yeah,
of.
that was behind me and I kept looking at it.
Yeah, I was like, well, if he's playing that, I might as well have a quick look at this Precinct thing. And it actually was much better than I thought it was going to be going in, which sounds like a bit of a backhanded compliment, but to the point where I'm going to put this on my radar now. It was actually quite interesting. It was a mainly third person kind of action game where you are taking control of a police officer and having to respond to various different things. First thing was a bank heist where you kind of jump in a patrol car and got to go in and assist with a bank heist and kind of get out of the car and then take cover behind the car. And you're supposed to try and arrest as many people as possible, but if they're shooting at you, you can shoot back, sort of idea. And I was praised for, I think there was 4 robbers, and I only arrested one of
Criminals.
them and got praised for doing that. I was like, I swear I should have arrested more than one. But anyway, okay, fair enough. But then, yeah, the other mission they showed off, you jump in a helicopter and you're not like kind of totally in control of it, but you've got this kind of searchlight that you're trying to put on the suspect that you're chasing in a car chase. And then you can kind of call out the reinforcements and get roadblocks set up ahead of him and all that type of stuff. And yeah, like from a game that I was like a bit dismissive of just looking at it, actually playing it and playing through it, I was like, actually, this could be quite fun. I quite like this. This is quite good. So yeah, it went from being, as I said, something I was dismissive of to something I'm being interested in and going to look out for when it comes to something. I'm not sure that I'd necessarily pay a large amount of money for it, but certainly if it comes to one of the like Game Pass or something, I would definitely download it and have a go at it and recommend other people do if that's the case. Think it might be coming to Game Pass. I'm not sure if I'm misremembering that, but yeah, anyway, one to look out for. I definitely think it's one to keep an eye on. It was better than I was expecting it to be, which, as I said, bit of a back.
It doesn't look too taxing and very Steam Deck worthy.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, it'd work quite well
Get
on
a
that.
Steam
I
Deck,
think it'd
Tim.
work quite well on Switch.
Tim, get a Steam Deck.
Or, a Switch 2. But yeah, the other one we saw was the most interesting thing we saw in the Left Field collection at EGX, which was a thing called Lowtek Lightbook. And in particularly,
Yes, I forgot about
it was
that.
a thing called, I think Bib Goes Home was the name of the game, the main game that we showed on it, but there was also a space game. But yeah, this is a hard one to describe, but I think it was different and interesting enough that it's noteworthy, basically, and we forgot to mention it previously.
Well, because I really wanted to, because we had a look through. So when we've done previous EGXs and we've done the Left Field collection and we've done the res sections and all that kind of stuff, there's usually a lot to look at. And this time I went through the Left Field and went, I'm not really connecting with much of this stuff this year. I don't know why. And I saw that and went, that's amazing. And it's kind of like a projector shined at a book laying on its side opening up. And it in one side I went, that's amazing. That's clearly not a consumer product. But also, because a lot of the times they will just like show you weird control methods and things that you hadn't thought of. Like, oh, we've got sensors.
Or things that go in a museum
bananas.
rather than never go on sale, basically.
Yeah, they like to turn up at the game
sort of line
museums
wobbler and stuff.
Yeah. So this was kind of one of those, but at the same time, I remember we put a lot of stock into Brady looking at Wonderbook. We did videos on it and stuff, if you remember.
Yes,
I think they made like 3 games for that thing and then cancelled it. But so it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, well, if we're going to EGX and there's a book thing, we should look at it.
But I did kind of ask him about it because I was intrigued and if he had a route to market for it. And he did say that that's something that they planned for and were looking at and were definitely, that is the approach he wanted to take. But it was basically, as you said, it's a projector shined at a book. The book is kind of angled towards the projector so that it projects onto the book. But they're pop-up books that have things in them that the software then reads what's going on the page and can communicate information from one page to another as you flip through the book. So the main thing we saw Bib Goes Home was a kind of platformer where you're jumping from one platform to get to a door to then be able to enter the next page of the book. But then he also showed off a little concept for a spacefaring game where you were kind of shooting and blasting asteroids and other ships and stuff as you went. And yeah, like it's just a very interesting concept. As I said, the overall book itself was called Lowtek Lightbook. And yeah, definitely just one worth keeping an eye out for because it was definitely weird and intriguing and interesting.
That wasn't interesting because I walked past it a bunch of times, stopped to watch demos and stuff. And it wasn't until I think like day 3 was when you went to talk to the guy. And that's when he went, oh, I'm going to show this space thing that I'm working on. And all of a sudden, like everyone around us just went, what's that? What's that? What's going on over here? Like that suddenly looks so much more exciting than I've seen. But I hadn't seen, I watched a bunch of demos and he hadn't done that until you went on there. So I don't know if he was showing you something specific because you were asking the right questions, but that looked really cool.
Yeah, really interesting. The fact that it's a system that can go from one thing to another.
I'd be interested to see if it's the software with the camera that is reading like texture bumps on the pages, or if it's like chips behind the bumps, or how they're doing it. Because it's like raised sections of the pages that are being read as platforms and obstacles. And things. So yeah.
The one thing that I couldn't help thinking though is that for the price it's going to cost to include the projector and what's going on with things, I think you'd be better off shifting it to being an AR product and just going with something that's got kind of mixed reality or augmented reality capabilities, and then feeding his book system alongside that. And then that's something that he could then release with that. As I said, maybe Wonderbook has burn Sony's kind of hands on that type of stuff. But they don't really have anything with mixed reality and stuff. Maybe going down the partnering with Quest 3 might be a better approach. But I don't know. It was interesting and weird enough that I thought it was, as I said, noteworthy and one to look out for.
It's either that or produce it to a professional level where you're constantly touring it on live shows and making money that way. Because, it looks like it could be a very expensive consumer product because it's not mixed into anything that we, like the bog standard consumer currently runs, you know?
Although I don't know how much a small, low resolution projector actually costs to manufacture.
£200 to
It might be
£400.
relatively cheap that makes it doable, but not sure.
Yeah,
I've got it was interesting anyway.
It was like £300, I think, at the time.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right. Any others from EGX?
That was the only two that I remembered that I was like, oh, we should definitely talk about those. But
that's good.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. We have done all the games that we're going to talk about this week. We will do more next week because we've got stuff kind of left over that's going to get passed over. Been sent a game, been playing a game, been doing some fun stuff that we're going to talk about next week, hopefully with Dan in tow. So we'll see. I will say before we go that you should go to tpublic.com/stores/BRB. And over there we have t-shirts, we have stickers, we have mugs, we have masks, we have a lot of different things. As pointed out by Gamers Confessional, their live stream I was watching, we have baby grows apparently, because they were looking at all of our stuff and mocking us for it. So I think there's something in the future where we're going to have to go up against Gamers Confessional. But yes, they were pointing out.
It's a fight you want, is it?
It's a fight you want. But yes, although they did say they were watching our EGX coverage, so that was good. Yes, tpublic.com/stores/BRB, and I would be remiss to not say you should be checking out things with Dan's face on there because he really likes when you go and do that. I would be more happy to say we've got stuff with Tabletop Tuesday on there, which brings us happily to our next Tabletop Tuesday, Tim.
Yeah. And our next Tabletop Tuesday, subject to me being well enough to actually attend, which I'm really hoping is the case. But yeah, especially because it's our Halloween special, because it's happening on the 31st of October.
I mean,
Halloween, as people know
maybe I'll come to that
and
one.
Stuff. Huh?
I said maybe I'll
You're
come
gonna
to that one.
Yeah, nice.
I've got no Halloween plans. Why not?
Well, you don't have to, but we are encouraging people to come in costumes or masks, and anyone that wears a costume or mask will possibly win a goodie bag of prizes. So,
if you wear
just to
a t-shirt with Dan's face on it, you automatically get a prize. Yeah, all right. It has to be the one. It has to be the one off TeePublic. Go on then. Why not? Let's stretch this out even longer. And now, through the power of editing, it's the Wish Grim Reaper.
Hello.
It's Skeletor.
I didn't wear it for the whole show because I would have got hot and messed up my hair.
To the power of Grey Skull.
Well, it's actually video game related because it's supposed to be at least Ghost.
Is that meant to be Ghost?
Call of Duty, which everyone knows my favorite game is Call of Duty. But no, I just thought it was good for Halloween, etc.
That's fair. If I'm there, I'll wear what have I got? I got a Beetlejuice t-shirt. That's pretty Halloweeny.
Okay, that's Halloweeny. I've worn some Halloweeny t-shirts for the last couple of weeks because I'm not going to be wearing my Halloween t-shirts for next week because I'm wearing an actual costume, or at least some of it. That's most of my costume. What are we playing at
Tabletop Tuesday for Halloween?
Well, for this week, we're just going to be mixing up and playing some games that you can come along and play. Basically, we'll be running more games of Blood in the Clock Tower because that's the most popular thing generally, and that's been going well. We had some big groups of that last week. So we'll be running some social media games like that. We've also got a variety of the different werewolf games, so we'll be running some of those throughout the evening. And some other scary games. If there's some interest, I could run a Betrayal at House on the Hill game because I haven't played that for a while, but I know that reasonably well, having played for it a few times. And yeah, there's a variety of games that we'll play throughout the evening. There's already a variety of Halloween-themed games there, like Horrified and a few other things. So come along, pick up a spooky game, come along with a costume. Might be sweets.
Ooh,
maybe.
So
there's usually sweets at our Halloween events. So that's all I'll say. But yeah, it should be a real fun time. The Halloween special is always good. That's why I'm really hoping I'm going to be well in time for it. If not, at least I'll be wearing a mask. So, that's not so bad.
That's fair.
But yeah, do come along, join us. There is more details on the top left-hand corner of BigRedBarrel.com, or you can join over 2,000 people in our meetup group on Meetup.com. Search for Tabletop Tuesday on Meetup.com. But also, while I'm mentioning Meetup.com, thank you very much for the people that have taken the time to leave us a review on Tabletop Tuesday there. We have over 250 reviews there now, and we have a rating of 4.9 stars after those 250 reviews.
Ooh.
Damn the one person that left us a 1-star review during lockdown, you muppet.
Sorry.
Anyway, right, we weren't actually having the event, so yeah, I guess you could mark us down for that, maybe. But we do have 225
same guy who spammed all of our social media to go, why are you closed?
Yeah,
because bars are closed.
Yeah. But yeah, we do have 225 5-star reviews, which I'm quite happy at after our 251 reviews. So that's pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that. So yeah, our highly rated, popular board game event, Tabletop Tuesday at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington. Come join us this Tuesday for our Halloween special on the 31st of October on Tuesday.
Tabletop Tuesday at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington on the 31st of October. That would be Halloween! Halloween for Halloween things. If you're like me and you've got a hole in your life that needs filling with something, why not go there and fill it with board games, alcohol, and candy? Sugar. Brrr.
I resisted the word candy, Coleman, because we're not Americans.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of Americans this week. It kind of rubs off after a while. Look, they mock.
Shouldn't rub off Americans on yourself. That's bad.
But candy is one. Pants, that's another one instead of trousers. Keeps happening.
Yep. Don't wear pants instead of trousers.
Keep saying Hoover. I will not say vacuum cleaner. All right. Yes, Tabletop Tuesday, all that stuff. That is great. If you could leave us a review, that would be great. If you could do so on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on, be that Apple, be that Android. There are usually different ways you can do it. It's probably on the app that you could be listening to this podcast on your phone. Also, you can go to BigRedBarrel.com. Over there, we have a website. We have different posts, the post for each episode. We have a comment section. You can go to our comment section. You can leave us comments. You can go to our Discord, which there is a link there on BigRedBarrel.com, and that will be shown here on the YouTube as well. You can go there. You can leave us comments. You can leave us questions, and we will answer them in future episodes. Not this week, because we've gone long on the games, and we want to have a full team of people to talk questions again. But yes, that is great if you can do that. All the links will be available in the show notes, and you can also go to at Big Red Barrel on Facebook, X, and Threads. And you can find us if you want to watch the video version of this show on YouTube, Big Red Barrel TV. Make sure to hit like, make sure to comment, and make sure to subscribe for future episodes of Big Red Barrel, BRB UK. And apparently, if you've noticed if you've been using the Google Podcast app and you've been going, this does not get updated as much as it should be, or it's slower than everything else, that's because they're doing a thing. They're going to tie it all in. They're going to tie all the Google stuff and the YouTube stuff together. YouTube will be the media thing. There will be YouTube podcasts. They've already gone, hey, do you want to do BRB UK as a YouTube podcast? And we said, we already kind of do, but yeah, fine, we'll put it on a feed as well. So you'll get us everywhere. You can find us everywhere you want to. Yeah, any of those things, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we've gone long, so we're going to end now. Hopefully Dan's back next week, and then we will talk more games. But until then, this has been episode 564 of BRB UK. I have been Coleman.
I might have been Tim.
Dan has been chaotic by not turning up, but I'm still chaos. And until next time, dear listeners and dear viewers, a goodbye.
My senses bouncing off a wall, evil lurking every day. Yeah, I don't ever need to call, I can feel it right away. Slim chance to beat the odds, but I always find a way. You will never just a nobody, go get them tigers, swing it up in the way.
You and And your ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarrel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
They have different reactions to how you do things. And then there's cool power-ups like becoming an elephant, which is something that I quite enjoyed. And you two didn't get to do because you picked Yoshi, who doesn't get to transform into things.
Well, thanks for telling me that